Today is legitimately an absolutely insane day to be a Marvel Snap player. This is going to be a wild video. We're going to be discussing a whole bunch of different things. Not only do we have the Planet Hulk Season Pass, the first Season Pass of 2024 coming out, and it features Skaar, Hulk's son. It also features Kaira. Actually, Kaira is not part of the Season Pass. She just happens to come out today anyways. And another major thing happened today too, which was the accidental official leak of the patch notes coming out next week, which Second Dinner released on their website by themselves by accident. And so we have been given permission to discuss in full the leaked patch notes. Well, they're not really leaked. They were like accidentally released early, I guess. So we have been given express permission by Second Dinner to discuss them, on the caveat though that they were drafted notes and that they might actually, and they should actually be changing ever so slightly. So in this video, we're going to be discussing a couple different things. One, the Season Pass. We're going to be discussing Skaar, and a deck that honestly I ran like an 80-something% win rate with. I loved it. I couldn't tell you how much I love this deck. And we're also going to be talking about the patch notes, and you can use the scrubber bar down below on YouTube to kind of find exactly where you want to see, or hey, watch the whole damn video. One thing I will tell you as well is I got some amazing gameplay of the decks and stuff and my experimentation with Skaar coming up. But Kaira will be its own separate video coming out tomorrow. So Kaira is going to be the focus of tomorrow's video. Today we're focused on Skaar. We'll be discussing the patch notes as well, okay? So let's get started with that. Let's get started with the patch notes because I think that's a pretty good kind of place to kind of get talking about what's going on. Now, these are subject to change, so let's just discuss them as they are. Loki going from a 4/5 on reveal that does exactly what it used to do to a 4/6 that transforms instead of replacing. So you're going to notice that the text here is a little different. I don't have my laser pointer here, but you have from transform to replace, and basically the reason why this is happening is because it reduces the effectiveness of basically the collector. And so this actually really surprises me. I suspected that Loki was going to get nerfed in this patch. Kind of disappointed to see it, honestly. This might be a hot take, but I actually don't think Loki was all that good. And a perfect example of this is on our most recent Infinity Conquest stream. We actually won our most recent Infinity Border using She-Not against a top 100 Loki player, one of the absolute best players in Marvel Snap, and we beat them with a She-Not deck. So it's like, okay, so we have a Loki spammer who's top 100, and we're able to beat them with She-Not, and like pretty substantially as well. And that should be a matchup favoring the Loki player thanks to the ability to use the Snowguard Hawk to disable Limbo, etc., etc. Honestly, I don't think Loki was that strong. And so even in like from on aggregate statistically, Loki's not that strong. He was running like a mid 50% win rate. There's way worse or better decks out there, right? So was kind of surprised to see this. And actually Collector was a major Achilles heel because Collector, yes, it would get nice and big, but I ran Shadow King in a lot of my decks. And so the Loki player would go 8 Qs and be like, oh, I got this Collector lane. And you'd flip it with a 2-power Collector and completely change the scope of the board on turn 6 or 7. Chef's kiss. It was such a good way to steal cubes from Loki players. You get rid of that and suddenly, I don't know, now they're just going to use your cards against you more effectively, I guess. So I felt like Collector was a bit of a risk, right, for Loki players. But anyways, Loki gets nerfed here. Kind of unfortunate, but it is what it is. We also have two massive nerfs here that are worth talking about. Loki's massive. Miss Marvel's change is massive too. You go from having like one original card there of any cost to activate the effect to having to have 2 cards present of different cost to activate the 4/15 effect as long as she's in the middle. A pretty substantial change. Now you have a lot of restrictions in place for Miss Marvel. She's still incredibly powerful, but it's notable here that like Professor X basically died for Miss Marvel here. And now you took a lot off that, like, oh, I'm just going to play Professor X and Miss Marvel after, right? Now, obviously, you still have Jeff and others, but you might be able to see a situation where Professor X gets its 2 power back, goes back to a 5/3, because the card kind of got killed pretty bad because of Miss Marvel, and now Miss Marvel's being adjusted to make the, oh, I'm just going to throw Professor X right and hope for the best play, not quite as applicable. So, very interesting to see that here, and a major restriction change. And this will make Miss Marvel a little more difficult to play, but it'll rise the types of decks that use like Dr. Dooms to alleviate those requirements as well. And with Dr. Doom, you're probably not playing something like a Professor X anyways, but you just might be, who knows. This is actually huge. I feel like Annihilus getting hit is wild to me. Annihilus was a very good card, there's no doubt about it, near the top of the meta. In fact, it was my top deck of the week last week. What kills me about this is that not only are you taking 2 power off it, which is massive, it's a massive nerf. 2 power off is huge. You're also restricting its ability to send over like additional junk, like rocks and stuff, which takes power off something like a Selene a little bit, because that like the junk archetype is what Selene wanted. Selene has been nerfed like so many times by association just as it was being released. Like, it was one of the most promising cards in Snap, and now the entire archetype around it just fell apart completely. It sucks, man. Like, Junk hasn't really seen its play yet, and Celine wasn't even making Annihilus decks because of Werewolf by Night still being so prevalent in Annihilus itself and being the preferred way to play. So seeing this come down is actually kind of frustrating for me, because like, I don't quite know like how you deal with Annihilus, but I don't know. This makes this whole thing is just weird. And now, so you can't send over rocks, you can't junk them up, and the 2 power is huge. This is a very significant nerf here. Although it allows you to play something like an Iron Man in your deck. I don't know why you'd want to really do that. But so, anyways, now you can only send cards below 0 power, and you lost 2 power off the top. Annihilus pretty significant here, but that doesn't mean that there aren't a couple interesting changes. We do have Dracula. This card has needed something. Dracula will now maintain its prior power level in addition to whatever it discards. That means that if it's a 4/1 and discards a 16 power Apocalypse, it'll actually be 21 power. It'll be a +4 from Apocalypse to 20 power plus the 1 it already had. What's interesting about this is if you buff it with like Okoyes and Nakias and other things, it'll maintain that buff power while doing the actual discard. Pretty notable. Overall, though, it's a minor buff. I don't know if it makes that much of a difference, but Dracula maybe needed a bit of something. It is worse than something like a Jotunheim, however, because Jotunheim, it'll keep that negative power that's being applied, where Dracula is sometimes very easy to throw into locations where you didn't care what happened to it, but it will work in something like a Muir Island. Now you have Angel. Would you believe it? Angel. They did it. They actually made the patch no change. Angel now flies out of your hand or your deck to replace it. The card probably still sucks, honestly, but it's not horrible. The thing about Destroy is that it's like such a tight deck. Like, you basically, like, there are people who cut like Nico from Destroy because they want an additional card in there that's specifically spicy for the given moment. Do you ever cut Nico for Angel? Probably not, right? So it's hard to kind of determine where Angel's going to fit in, but hey, at least the buff happened. It's better than it was before. Probably still a bad card, but look at that. Angel getting buffed. Then we have Quake. This is actually kind of interesting. These new 2 next cards are interesting. Quake. So I had suggested on the Snapchat that they actually just show you where it was going to rotate. This is a little more of an elegant solution, not quite as fun, but you're basically just swapping the 2 edge locations. That could still be very impactful. I thought the original version of my idea, I think it's still better. Basically, hover Quake, show where the locations are going to change to, including the center one, and do it. This feels like it's easier from like a programming and game dev scenario while still making Quake maybe a little better. But honestly, I would rather have switched all the locations around, because if you're trying to mess with locations, like if Nexus is in the middle, then you're still just screwed half the time, right? So I think it would have been a lot more interesting to implement the idea that I had, but it would have been a lot more development work. Quake still is not going to be played. This is probably not enough. Then we have Kingpin. This is actually really interesting. Kingpin goes from a 3/4 to a 2/3, and instead of destroying cards on turn 6, when an enemy card moves there, afflict it with -2 power. This is pretty interesting because something like a Polaris, I don't even know how to say the name properly, but you drag a card into Kingpin's location, it gets -2 while you having Polaris. Like, that's pretty significant, right? It's a big power delta. The other thing worth noting here is it'll work with Abomination, but I don't know if there's an Abomination high Evo deck that's going to be running Polaris and Kingpin. Maybe there is, but that seems very draw dependent, and you're never really floating on curve either. But regardless, it's an option, right? So this does kind of do things a little interesting. It's also a huge hit to like the Silky Smooth style decks, because if you put Kraven and then you put Kingpin there, and then like the cards bounce around, like they're just getting destroyed by the Kingpin the whole time. It's also notable that Hercules is coming out. So Hercules, I mean, could this be used offensively with Hercules? Potentially, right? It could also be used defensively against people trying to use Hercules to bounce their cards around. It also kills Meek. Poor Meek. Meek hasn't even come out yet, and if Meek kind of moves to a location with Kingpin, it gets destroyed. So that's kind of, not destroyed, but it gets afflicted with some serious negative power. So Meek does get countered by Kingpin. Those are the patch notes, and those are what have been leaked. It's also notable that they might change as was stated by Second Dinner, okay? So let's move on back to the game. All right, so let's talk about Skaar. Skaar is a 6/11 that costs 2 less for each of your cards in play that have 10 or more power. It's not in your deck, it's not in your hand, it has to be in play to get its cost reduction. Honestly, it's a good card. In my experience with it so far, like, should I get it, should I not? The Season Pass is always good value, but like, this is probably not, how do I explain it? It's better than Sebastian Shaw. It's not as good as Miss Marvel. It doesn't have that, like, I can put it anywhere that Miss Marvel did, but this definitely is going to be good. Like, I feel like it's a good card. It's a very strong card. It's like, it's good for a Season Pass where it's going to be applicable to a couple different archetypes, and it's going to be notable. It's going to be strong, but it's not going to be overbearing. Although with cost reduction, I say that, but at the same time, I know there's going to be a deck that comes out with like a 68% win rate that like abuses cost reduction somehow, right? But Skaar feels very fair right off the top. Now, the season pass, honestly, the variants are good. If you do not have, like if you're new to the game and you don't have Silver Surfer, it's a very good time. That's not Silver. It's a good time to pick up the season pass to get this awesome card. It's a great Series 3 card. Silver Surfer's a little beat up right now, but it's an archetype defining card that's great to have. So if you're new to the game, that's worth noting. I also still really appreciate that they changed basically a regular variant to a premium mystery variant, which is a nice little value addition that I talked about on the Snapchat, and I'm glad that they actually implemented. Now, with regards to Skaar, I had a ton of fun playing this card. Let's actually talk about my favorite deck. We did a whole bunch of different versions of decks. We did a lot of experimentation with it. This was by far my favorite. This is Skaary Knight. Skaary Knight was an absolutely remarkable deck that ran a I tweeted, it was like an 83% win rate, and we did some different additions to it. Like we had one version that we ran that was honestly still doing fantastic, but we made some changes, and this is what we landed on, and I still think we can make some additional adjustments. We got Black Knight, we got Blade, Zabu. Good question, why Zabu? I was getting a lot tonight. Now, Zabu's key because of a couple things here. Of course, you get the Jubilee, Ghost Rider, and Shang-Chi, which are notable, because you can play like Shang-Chi and Ghost Rider on turn 6, or Jubilee and Ghost Rider on turn 6, or whatever, but it's also important to note that you have the Ebony Blade itself is a 4 cost. That lets you play Shang-Chi in any of your 4 drops, and even something like a Ghost Rider you can bring back like an Infinite, plus the Ebony Blade, right? So the Ebony Blade going down to a 3 cost is huge for these cards, especially since every one of these cards, Jubilee not as much, can actually swing the game quite a bit. So Zabu is a hugely valuable card in this deck. Then you have Lockjaw, which is really nice, and we had a Thanos Lockjaw version, but it seemed like way more hectic. This seemed like so reliable. So reliable, like you're able to, if you play Blade into Lockjaw, you know what you're discarding. You play Sif into Lockjaw, you generally know what you're discarding. Jubilee Lockjaw is just good. Like there was so many great options here, and it worked just so damn well. I thought that Black Knight was doing remarkable with like Magneto, Infinite, and of course Doc Ock. Do not cut Dr. Octopus from this deck. He was by far the MVP of this deck. It wasn't even Skaar that was doing the most damage. Skaar just helped close out games. Dr. Octopus was disgusting in some situations. Like it was so good how well Dr. Octopus played. Literally loved it. Remarkable how good Doc Ock was. And like the honest truth is, when you start getting those the Ebony Blade out, the Ghost Rider, the Infinite out, Magneto, whatever, Skaar just drops in power from a 4 to a 2. Then it's a 2, and then like on turn 5, you can play Skaar and Ghost Rider, Skaar and Jubilee, Skaar and whatever, the Ebony Blade. You probably have to play the Ebony Blade earlier anyway, but the long story short is Skaar as a discounted card was often very valuable, especially since you're able to cheat out cards so effectively with Lockjaw and Ghost Rider. It was just good. I gotta tell you, it was just good. This deck ran like an 80-something% win rate. We absolutely were climbing with it. It was just remarkable how good this deck played. It was by far my favorite. This is the one that like I'll showcase in the gameplay highlights a couple other ones as well, but ultimately this was the one I really liked the best. And I honestly think that Skaar and the Season Pass are worth getting. Most Season Passes are going to be worth getting. It doesn't feel as broken. Like, it doesn't have, like, it's not as good as Miss Marvel was, but it's going to feel good. And there's going to be reasons to play Skaar. He does feel a little like you got to work to get him out there. But I mean, listen, there's going to be opportunities to put power on the board. That cheating effect, we haven't even played with ramp yet, but I do think this Black Knight deck was by far my absolute favorite. So you're going to see in these gameplay highlights, I absolutely loved playing this deck. I loved playing Skaar, and the deck just honestly performed. I really appreciate if you enjoy these videos, hit the like button. It really helps my content tremendously. I hope you enjoy these gameplay highlights. These are locations we just don't want to naturally play into here. Doc Ock into Bar Sinister, though, kind of funny. Could skip into turn 5 Infinite. Oh, man. Do we actually murder Lockjaw here? Lockjaw dies. What card am I most looking forward to this month? I was looking forward to Kyra the most. And right now we're testing Skaar, but Kyra is going to be the focus tomorrow. And I'm going to be very, very happy, I think, with the result. Kyra looks like it's going to be an absolutely remarkable card. Yeah, this is definitely a Tribunal player. Now, our Doc Ock could potentially be very strong here. We're going to want to... Do we snap into this? Or do we... Drawing both crystal and magic into the Invisible Woman location is going to be pretty bad for them. So I think it's Zabu into Ghost Rider. We bring back Magneto. Magneto drags both these in. We snap. We send it. Magneto's going to be very disruptive to their Invisible Woman, who I'm sure they're really wanting to play with some degree of effectiveness. So they'll play one card here. It's probably their Iron Man. It's likely to be Iron Man. Ghost Rider, Magneto. These cards come on over. And it's a disaster for their game plan there. We can also Jubilee Ebony Blade here. Now they're going to be at 16, ironically. So we're going to play the Ebony Blade right. No, we want to go vertical on two ends here. Jubilee into Doc Ock. Doc Ock can't pull. It guarantees this location. This is correct, I think. Yeah, okay. So we just guarantee that location. Ebony Blade comes down, Skaar 0. They play their own Jubilee. Minions. And they draw their hell, so this game's done. So we just Skaar, Shang-Chi, we Blade. It doesn't matter. I don't see how they win this, but I'd like to see myself lose. I want to see you beat me for 8. No, they're gone. Okay. Well done. I think the Doc Ock left was correct. Against a Tribunal player with a full hand, I don't know if we want to run the risk of pulling their cards onto the field. And if they ever get a combo, we want to make sure we're really vertical. I cannot stop playing this deck. Like, I have been loving this particular deck. I cannot explain to you how much I've loved this deck. It has just been so much fun. That snap came in a little too late there. But it's okay. We got a limbo game. Okay, I think we actually lockjaw Sif here. I think that's fine. They played Magic on top of Limbo. You'd love to see it. That's some gameplay right there. Alright, we are going to Lady Sif. It will hit the Infinite. We're getting a really thick stick on the Ebony Blade. That's what you love to see, folks. Jubilee's not what you want to see. Ooh, the Doc Ock! We're gaming now! Havok! White Tiger! Oh, God! Into Bast! What is happening here? Oh, no! The humanity! Is their game completely ruined? That is the question that I have for you, my friends. Everything is awful. Ebony Blade coming down here. This is an absolute train wreck for our opponent. They cannot punch out that Ebony Blade. Even if they top deck Shang-Chi. It's Ironheart. Complete disaster. But I mean, they're going to put up points with Havok. Make no mistake, Havok is going to put up some points. We do bring back an Infinite. I think we do this. We rotate Shang-Chi. We always... Oh, no. Let's top deck Shang-Chi. Hold on. Let's be smart here. Oh, they're gone. Victory. Oh, my gosh. If we just played the next turn, we were guaranteed Shang-Chi. Either we drew it or we lockjaw it. Unbelievable. I can't believe that game. And Skaar sitting at a 0. A 20 Ebony Blade down. Dr. Octopus has been just ridiculous for us. All right, so we got Lockjaw in hand. Oscorp Tower. I think what we're going to do here... Now, there's a risk to playing Lockjaw into Hood if they're going to bring it over. But what we're going to do instead is we will play here. Because either way, if they bring the Hood over, Black Knight's still occupying that space regardless. Wakanda's annoying specifically for Gambit. Gambit's pretty much useless here. So we're going to do the Lady Sif roll here. 25% chance it hits Hela. Everything else is pure gravy. They've snapped. They got rid of my Hela. And they give me a really weak Ebony Blade. Very unfortunate. Whoa, 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 whoa.
Minions to me.
Whoa? What? That is something. I was not expecting that. That was something. Do I skip an Infinite? That was kind of crazy. There's a chance they have Shang-Chi though. Oh, this is the Black Bolt. Oh, this is the list I showcased on my channel. I know exactly what deck this is. They can beat us here. We're attacking 2 locations, but we're not attacking by much. 4 power, 2 power. I think what's likely to happen is they're going to play like a small card here. Go up by 1 here. 6, 5. Let's send this. Ah, Shang-Chi. Yeah. Wait a minute. Oh my gosh, we win? Oh no. What a game. That was an absolutely wild game of Marvel Snap. That was something else. I love it. I love games like this. You win by 1 point. Blade solo on the right. We actually flipped them too. We were going to do it the other way around. So we do have Lockjaw here. I'm going to go X-Mansion Lockjaw. We're out of space there. Does this deck need Zabu? Great question. So Zabu's good in this deck for the simple reason that it discounts not only Jubilee and Ghost Rider, but it also discounts the Ebony Blade from Black Knight, which is notable. So we're going to discard the Magento here. And you're going to see exactly why. So we discard Magneto, right? We get the Ebony Blade, and the Ebony Blade is going to be 3 costed thanks to the Zabu. And Skaar comes out. So this Iron Man is so huge for them, it's kind of gross. Thankfully for us, we do have Magneto, which could be incredibly problematic for them. Do we actually Jubilee here? Hitting Ghost Rider is a disaster, though. We never hit Ghost Rider, right? We never hit Ghost Rider. Yes, okay. Interesting. Muir Island's kind of strange, I guess, but it should mess up their Miss Marvel. Oh! Oh my god, I just stole their Iron Man! You've got to be kidding me! I stole their Iron Man with Dr. Octopus! Disaster! Oh! I did not see that coming. Oh, but they play Shang-Chi. They play Shang-Chi to flip the board there. That was wild. And here's Ghost Rider. Here's Ghost Rider. So we are going to win here. Unless they play like a Korg or something to put themselves above. It's always Ghost Rider. It's probably just Ghost Rider, Ebony Blade. Because everything we drag through, we should be able to trade with the... Yeah, we just do this. We just do this. So Ghost Rider, Ebony Blade should be enough. Magneto comes back. We're dragging a lot of value over. Rock Slide again. So yes, well, we had initiative anyway. And Kyera. So that Miss Marvel is... Wait, what? Was that Mystique Miss Marvel? I think it was. I don't know. That was a wild game. Good game. Good game. That was actually a crazy one. That was one of my favorite games I've played in a while. This deck has been popping off, though. It has been so good for us.